There have been a lot of thoughtful questions about the spider venom in my last review, and I want to answer them while smoking a brisket. And this is not meant to be a brisket tutorial video. In fact, this is my first time ever using the Chud's foil boat method, and I want to find out together how it works out for someone who's never done it before. Trimming briskets takes a lot of practice, and mine still look like they come out of the movie The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I think it's more than good enough for backyard Q, and I end up getting pretty aggressive with the trims because I like to render out the fat as well as use the meat for brisket burgers later. And before I talk about how I lit the venom for my brisket, let's talk about the most common question, and that is, how is it when you clean out the ash? And it's a little bit more difficult than your standard ash clean out process because the venom connects to the ash sweeper at the bottom of the kettle. That increases the resistance a little bit, but it's still completely doable. And if that bothers you, one workaround is you could go underneath, you drop out the ash catcher, unhook the ash sweep, put the ash catcher back on, and then you can sweep it back and forth and remove all the ash unencumbered. If you don't care, you could totally do it the other way. One other gotcha is that the ash catcher is just a little bit smaller on the venom, and they probably did that just for height clearance. They didn't want to make the thing super tall. But that means you're going to end up cleaning it out probably every cook or two. Another common question is, do you need to remove the venom altogether if you don't want to use it with your kettle? And that answer is no. You can still adjust the vents with it in place, but there's a couple of caveats that I want to show you. And this is a lot easier to do with the lid off because you can see exactly where the vents line up and when they open and close, because it's a little bit obscured with the venom in place. That's also true with the ash catcher. And something similar that people will do is they'll mark where the quarter open, half open, and full open are. So that way you can just use that as a gauge and be able to figure out exactly how open it is without having the lid off. And if you go that route, I suggest that you disconnect the venom from the ash sweep so that way you can have it full open and then just adjust the airflow using the vents alone. If you do it with the two in tandem, you're probably going to have a little bit of funniness there and you won't have full control. I haven't tried cooking hot and fast with the venom in place, but I do have one concern, and that is the gasket covers up some of the vents, so you may not get the same amount of airflow. You may not be able to get to those high temperatures, but in that situation, just leave the venom on and then the fan will do all of the work and set it exactly where you need it. And that's exactly what I did when I cooked my pizza, and I'll show you that later on in the video. For the brisket cook, I use the slow and sear because that's the way I generally like to cook low and slow on the Weber kettle, and I lit it the exact same way. Took a dozen briquettes, I fired those up, then I filled up the rest of the slow and sear and let the venom do all of the hard work and modulate the temperature. And I figured a full load of charcoal should be enough to make it through the night. Nope. In fact, it wasn't even close. So I realized that the app isn't totally working, at least it didn't work for me on this cook. I woke up in the middle of the night and checked the temperature. It said it was 225 degrees Fahrenheit, so it was right where it was supposed to be. That's exactly where I set it. And so I blissfully slept, thinking that my brisket was cooking just the way that it was supposed to. Unfortunately, the app had disconnected, and when I went out to the kettle, I found that it was actually 190 degrees Fahrenheit, and the fan was going pretty hard. When I opened it up, I saw that there wasn't much charcoal left. Most of it had burned out. Now, it wasn't a big deal. I was able to fill it back up, but it did extend the cook just a little bit longer. People have asked about the probes that come with the Spider Venom, and it comes with two, but it has 3 ports altogether. The first one is the probe port. That measures the temperature inside of the kettle. It's required. It won't work without that one. The second one is a meat probe. You can plug that in there and put the other end of your meat. Keep track of the brisket temperatures. And the third port doesn't come with a spare probe, but you can use one of the standard ones and it'll plug in just fine. But for me, that's not a big deal because generally speaking, I only want to measure the temperature of one thing in the kettle at a time. I got a lot of different questions asking if the Spider Venom would fit different types of grills, and it really only fits in one very narrow category, and that is grills from Weber. You're looking at the 22-inch size grills that have the legs on the bottom. That means it'll work for something like the Performer because it's the exact same size and those leg holes still exist, so that way it'll allow you to attach the venom to the bottom as well. It won't fit on the 18-inch because the ash catcher is just a little bit smaller. It only fits on the 22-inch grills, but it also fits on the Summit Kamado, which has a similar style. A lot of people said that that wasn't necessary because the Kamados are really good at maintaining temperatures, so it's really up to you whether or not you'd want to use it there. Quite a few people asked if the Spider Venom was waterproof because they were going to leave it outside. And their answer is it is weatherproof, and I just left it outside in the rain just a few minutes ago, and I'm not too concerned about it because of that rating. But that said, I'm still going to keep it covered with a cover. That way it'll keep most of the rain off and should help it last a lot longer. We don't want to make it harder on it than it needs to, but you also don't need to be concerned about things like humidity. It should be just fine. So do I think the Spider Venom represents a good value? And that really depends on what it is that you value. If you wanted to have something that was set it and forget it, but still have that charcoal taste, then it could be worth your while, especially when you consider if you're gonna go buy another fan controller, an ash catcher, a step bit, and go through all the hassle of drilling a hole in your kettle. It would be cheaper just to buy the Spider Venom because you can attach it without modifying your grill whatsoever. So in that respect, yes, it is a good value. And no, I'm not gonna include the price in my review video because prices change over time and this video should last longer than that. If you wanna find out their most up-to-date pricing, go to their website right here. A few more hours into the cook, it was time to wrap it, and I wanted to follow Chud's foil boat method, or at least follow it the best that I could. So I wrapped it up along the side, and I also left just a little bit more fat on the top so that way it could render, knowing that that part could get a little bit extra crispy. At least that's the feedback I got from other people that had tried it. For high heat on the Venom, I wanted to test making a pizza at 550 degrees Fahrenheit, which happens to be the maximum temperature that the Venom will go. That temperature is really hard to reach at my altitude, but the fan made it a snap, and I made some really good pizza, and I'll show you the video at the end screen at the end of this video. And speaking of it being hard to get high temperatures on the Weber kettle, here's a comment I got on my last review video.
If you can't control the temps on a Weber kettle with the vents, you probably shouldn't be playing with fire. I'd suggest that you sell it, then drive a half-mile to your local barbecue restaurant. Cheers.
And cheers to you as well. Now, I'm not one to grill shame people. The only thing that really matters is the results. If you look at someone like Harry Sue, he was won competitions with something that he calls the Tamale Joe, which is just a Jumbo Joe with a tamale pot on it. And he does it because he owns his cooker. He does it to absolute perfection. And you can bet that the people who spent tens of thousands of dollars on their pit weren't laughing when Harry Sue got called out and won a trophy. And it really shouldn't be about fiddling with events, because in this case, I was doing an overnight cook and then I was working on the video the next morning. I had other things that I wanted to do that weren't messing with the grill. And that's super convenient. And I know there's other people out there that feel the same way, because if it weren't, you know that pellet grills wouldn't be as popular as they are. Which brings me to the results of the brisket test. The Venom held the temperatures perfectly as long as I kept the lid shut and made sure that I had enough charcoal inside of the kettle. And throughout this process, I learned two things about the foil boat method. And the first one is the brisket is going to continue to contract as it cooks. So you got to take your foil boat and crunch it back up against the sides. Otherwise, you're going to get more air in there and you could end up with something that's a little bit extra crispy. And the second one is that crust on the outside impacts the way the tenderness feels when you put the probe through, and that meant that I ended up overcooking it because I thought it wasn't quite done, and the temperature still didn't quite reach where I thought they needed to be. It ended up still being a pretty good brisket, but wasn't quite as good as I had hoped for. That was my fault, but it was a pretty good attempt at a first try at making a brisket using that method. But you know what turned out perfect on my first try? Making a pizza in the Weber kettle with the Spider Venom at 550 degrees Fahrenheit. You can check out that video right here and see pizza perfection.